Hello and welcome to the Miss Rolling In podcast. As usual, my name is Jacob Staten, and as usual, I'm joined by Joshua J. Jonah, Jamie Red, Rue Armstrong. Joshua, how are you?
I'm perfect now that I've realised how to make my mic actually record. We just tried to start this podcast and I failed, but we're here. Hopefully you can hear me. Not a lot has happened since we last spoke, has it, Jacob?
No, for anyone who is not watching and is just listening, I did just do a grimace and an eye roll. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke. I think that we left you last walking back through the Meadows precinct, past Poets, into the train station, discussing a late 2-1 loss to Newcastle, which, in light of the absolute drubbing they gave West Ham the Sunday just gone, was actually a really, really good result. Obviously, without any points, not a great result, but you know what I'm saying. And then we entertained Wolves at the City Ground. And I think Joshua wants to give us both 45 seconds each, don't you, Joshua, to discuss?
Yes.
So we're not dwelling today.
Yes, Wolves was so long ago. Let's just get it out there. Let's say our piece. And that's it. 45 seconds.
Moving on up.
So,
do you want me to count you in?
You count me in. I'll go. It will beat when I'm done. 45 seconds. And I've written notes on my phone just because I think it would be impossible without it. So you count me in and I'll go.
1, 2, 3, go.
The front three were great. The midfield three were great. Danilo is something special. He feels like the difference. His link up with Dennis and Morgan Gibbs-White in particular was great. It was a brilliant assist and an unreal finish from Brennan. Don't have time for that. Felt it was a shame about the fullbacks when I saw the team sheet, but they can come out of the game with a lot of credit. They did well. Brennan's dive was neither a penalty nor a yellow card, but why wasn't the ref consistent enough to give Traore a yellow too? Wolves are horrible bastards and shite. Podence is a rat. Spitting is disgusting, even if it's just the intent. The Worrell sub was not the reason we lost, so don't be stupid. It's because we didn't finish our chances. Dennis cutting back and not squaring it gives me absolute nightmares. It felt deflating in the end. They scored with the only shot of target on the game. And why can't Morgan Gibbs-White play Wolves every week? Beep. It's done. Stressful. That's stressful. Last point. Very nice. If we play like this, we'll stay up.
Oh. We'll win more than we lose.
Oh, you said that. It wasn't true. Jacob, you're up. 45 seconds. Don't dwell on it. 3, 2, 1, go.
So a quite impressive performance, I think, in reality, proving that possession is not 9/10 of the law in football. When you look at the stats, and they had 72%, which still blows my mind to this day. You look at the stats below that, which are 17 shots on goal to their 8, with 7 on target, and only their actual goal, which was deflected anyway, being the only one on target. I thought in general it was a really good performance. My mind boggles that we didn't come out with the 3 points. My mind boggles that Podence, the dirty little rat, didn't get sent off. If you threw a punch and missed, you get sent off. Even if you're saying that he didn't actually spit, he went to. That's all there is to it. I don't think the change in formation was catastrophic as people made out.
Time's up. Your time is up,
mate.
Done.
I'll swallow it. There you go.
You'll swallow it just like Podence's spit.
He didn't swallow it, mate. He spat it. There you go. He's a fucking llama or a camel or whatever
Let me just take one extra deviant. I don't know if that's a word.
Deviation.
They're trying to make a case for Mitrovic's ban because they're trying to make a point that it's not okay to push and assault referees, particularly because, it influences people watching a game, especially young people. If a player can spit at another player and the young people watch that and think that the intent's fine and they can get away with it, that's a really poor thing to sort of showcase to the younger audience or anyone in general, because it's disgusting. So Wolves, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I think if you couple that as well with another slight deviation with the fact that I believe we've been charged with failing to control our players in the aftermath and sort of thing. So what's happening to the referee? He failed to deal with a situation of a player being spat at. Sorry, not the referee, the VAR officials. I can completely understand if the referee didn't see it happened away from him, that kind of thing. But to not even send the referee to watch it.
Brennan Johnson covered himself in glory in that he came out that situation mature in his post-match interview. Podence has written today that he hasn't done it. Who knows? I guess it looked like it to me. I will leave the FA to decide what happens there, but a horrible circumstance. And if I was a Wolves supporter, I'd be embarrassed that player represents my club. And I'd be embarrassed that even the manager and the players represent my club because they were horrible. Really ill-disciplined. Anyway, Wolves.
Sorry, I've got one last thing to say. One last thing to say on this game.
We said we weren't going to dwell.
I know, I'm sorry. If anybody's, and I sent this to you as well, didn't I, JJ? But if anybody's not sure, has any ill feeling towards this game, what didn't really think we performed well, go to the Wolves Facebook page. Go to the, every team puts a photo, a nice graphic up of what the final result is, and a like some absolute Billy bollocky nonsense of a comment, and read the comments from the Wolves fans. They know they got a smash and grab, and they were very humble about it and quite complimentary on our team, which I think is very gracious. But they know they got a bit of a smash and grab in that game, which I think is absolutely true. So
you must be seeing some different Wolves fans to me. I've seen a lot of them say Gibbs White is shit, which you're kidding yourselves, lads. Anyway, on to the next game. I said, as my last point, if we play like that, we'll survive. Next game came around. We didn't play like that, did we, Jacob?
No, it was away from the City ground, so we tend not to, which is, I suppose, is baffling. An interesting game because, like a lot of games before it, for most teams, not just us, but until their goal, it was probably 60-40 Forest. I think we scored a fantastic goal, and then great finish by Mangala as well. Just to add, but they get, I don't want to say a lucky goal because, Keylor Navas knows that he should be pushing that a bit further wide, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a gaff. I just, I think Navas is a better keeper than that, and it is a kind of well pounced on by, it was Jack Harrison, wasn't it, who's very much Denzel Washington for them at the minute, man on fire. So yeah, and then as soon as their goal goes in, they are just on top of us. Nico Williams, I think, had a pretty poor game all match, and Sinistera had his pants down a few times, especially for his goal. That he should never have been allowed to cut inside that far and get a shot off. I did initially think there's a possible offside on Patrick Bamford as he definitely goes to kick the ball, but he's not really in Navas's eye line, is he? So I suppose there's nothing really for them to check there. But yeah, so taking us into half time, we're definitely on the back foot, and I think we did, in fairness, definitely deserve to be behind. JJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think for the first 15, 20 minutes, I think we looked great. We looked good. I thought this could be the game that changes it all. It shows what Dennis can do when he looks up and does pass the ball. The finish from Mangala was lovely. Nice to see him score. But after that, it just all sort of fell away. I think their goal did come from a mistake. I think it was a blunder. I think it's poor from Navas. However, he is a world-class keeper. He's fantastic, as we've seen. So the fact that I've seen online criticism of Navas, I think is really unjust. I think that's unfair. I think he's kept us in games more than we should have been throughout his time at Forest so far. But I think that goal made us panic a bit because their fans were back on side. Their fans were back singing. I think if we got a second goal, it would have quieted them down, and I think we would have gone on to win. Obviously, so easy to say that in hindsight. It's not how the game panned out.
Yep.
Your point about Nico Williams is interesting because against Wolves, I thought Nico and Toffolo had a great game. They were a real credit, and they surprised me because initially I thought, I wish we had Aurier and Lodi. But unfortunately against Leeds, they did show their naivety, particularly Nico. I watched the highlights back before this podcast, and just watching Sinistera just run at him, and run at him, and run at him, and run at him, and Nico just do nothing. I mean, that was just absolutely painful. So I don't know what it is about us away, but there's just something that just isn't working. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if it's got into our heads. I don't know if it's become a thing now. But first 15 minutes, I thought it was our day. Everything since then, certainly not. So yeah, not great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to touch on some positives throughout the game.
Well, we're not talking about second half yet, lad.
Do we have to? Go on. You talk about second half.
The only thing I think needs mentioning is that Steve Cooper rolled the dice pretty early on, didn't he? He changed to the to put a 1 up as a target man, and we swapped to going a bit longer, which I don't personally want to watch, but I get that it has its place, especially at this end of the table. I just think it was. I don't know if he necessarily rolled the dice too early, or if the roll of the dice was. I don't know. The kind of change in formation, I don't think was completely necessary, but mine's not to question Steve Cooper. I suppose.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that he did definitely try, and although the performance wasn't good, it wasn't for a lack of effort by the players. He certainly hasn't lost the dressing room or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I just think he threw the kitchen sink at it, really. But I think he was possibly in danger of overthinking it, which is understandable given his position and the pressure that he would have felt at that moment in time due to media speculation. The players certainly didn't look like they weren't playing for him, for me. Brennan Johnson's frustration was completely clear to see in the second half. He cares a lot, and you can see that. Mm-hmm. As do most of the players to me. I did think on the night the players did let him down, and I was very angry. Obviously, we'll talk about the whole Cooper out debacle after this, but I was very angry on the night that these set of players, in particular, were going to be some of the ones to get our greatest manager in a long time since Frank Clark sacked. That's what it felt like at the time. So I don't know what it is away from home. Before I go on to positives, our ball retention and our willingness to battle in midfield just doesn't happen away. Yep. I think we're crying out for Yates and Kouyate together away. I think they disrupt and help battle the midfield. We're dying for something like that. But I think a better team smashes us more than 2-1 because Leeds were through quite a few times and wasted what could have been a chance with poor decision making or poor finishing. So it was a horrible, horrible game. I just felt very, very sad at the end of it because it felt inevitable. So not good.
Yeah. I suppose it brings us nicely into all the speculation around King Cooper's future.
It doesn't
bring us nicely into it, no. But it was one that lots of news outlets were reporting on, lots of fans were speculating on. I think judging by the fan base, I still think it's very much kind of 90-10 Cooper in our fan base, which is absolutely fantastic. I think everyone's pulling in the same direction. And then Tuesday night came and went, didn't it? It was Tuesday the game, wasn't it? Tuesday night came and went. Wednesday morning came and went. Got to Wednesday afternoon, then we get the statement from Mr. Marinakis to confirm that he's backing the manager. I think there's a clear. I don't want to say threat. I think there's a clear.
The dreaded vote of confidence.
There's a clear vote of confidence, but there's a clear path to say, I do still expect better. It's not a blind faith, which I think should say anyone in that kind of what I imagine is kind of 10% saying Cooper out, or the people that aren't necessarily Cooper out, but think there still needs to be a change, if you know what I mean. Which is fantastic. But I as much as I think you are, JJ, as well, I'm sure you'll talk about it, is I am very much Cooper in. I'm Cooper in if we go down. I'm Cooper in if we stay up. The man, it's not just, we haven't just got a good manager. We've got a manager that gets our club, that understands the wealth of history we've got, but doesn't bow down, but doesn't buckle under the pressure. We've got a manager that that wants us to play the right way, but understands that right now we can't. Even in the Championship when we were, for lack of a better term, we were kicking absolute fuck out of teams. There was still, the best game I can think of is Swansea at home. Swansea liked to keep the ball, so Steve Cooper just went, all right, but when we have it, we're going to go up the other end of the pitch and we're probably going to score. It was that kind of pragmatism that I think earned him, certainly in my head, it earned quite a few comparisons to kind of, and obviously it's nowhere near that level and that kind of length of time, but the kind of the way that Alex Ferguson was managing Manchester United at the time, it was if we can, we will try and play good football. If we can't, we're going to use the ball as well as we can when we do have it. And I think, given time, we will only be in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, on Tuesday night, as you will very well know because I blew your phone up with messages, I was genuinely distraught. Like, I was so upset about it. It felt inevitable. It felt like the Cooper out voice was getting a bit louder from some arm of the fans. I can see why a few select people could be Cooper out. It's a nervy position. I can see why, but it's not where I'm at. And I was at a point where I'd messaged you that night saying, he's going to go. I know, I can tell. Does your dad want my Man United ticket? Because I need a break from the club. Because I think that's what Cooper has made this club for me. And he's given me a club which I can finally feel. Obviously, I've always felt strongly about Forest, but I feel more of a connection than I ever have to the club at the minute. And it's because of Steve Cooper. And I think, had he been sacked, I think it would have been entirely unfair, and he would have been punished for overachieving. I think he got us up way too early, ahead of plan. It was a miracle where he took us, and people can say, stop talking about last season, stop dwelling on it, but factor in where we were a year ago. It's very swift and quick progression to go from where we were to where we are now. So he's taken us up early, I think, with some form of miracle and by being a fantastic manager. He's been given a difficult task anyway from that. Going up via playoffs, losing a lot of loan players, you're in a difficult position there. Chuck in a chaotic recruitment, which is very disruptive. I used the term on Twitter the other day of knitting together a bunch of misfits, and people might see that as offensive, but I don't mean it in the term of misfits. I just think it's a cobbled together group.
Yep.
We threw everything at it. It's an impossible task to tie that many people together. And I think he's done a great job at it. I think January probably disrupted it again. Some players are fit for purpose in our squad. Some players aren't. So there we go. Sorry to keep going on, but other sides in the bottom half of the table that have got rid of their manager, for me, I identify one or two things that they needed to do by getting rid of their manager, and that was to get the fans back on side and to get the players back on side. Mm-hmm. The difference with this club is we don't need to do either. The players are playing for him. Just look at Toffolo's interview the other day. He couldn't commend him highly enough, and this is a player that's on the fringes and larger than the bench, talks about what a great man he is. I mean, all players have great things to say about him. Without someone like Steve Cooper, you don't have players like Morgan Gibbs-White or Brendan Johnson performing at the level they are. The fans certainly don't need to be brought back on side. There is a small contingent, of course there is, but the amount of support when things are getting tough, things are getting rough. Look at Leicester 4-0 bottom of the table. His voice was sang so loudly. We showcased our backing, and I think it's a real credit to Nottingham Forest that we've got a fan base that has a voice and is passionate enough about our manager. I think we're in a very special circumstance. So, also, another thing, sorry. If we had got rid of Steve Cooper and we went down and we needed to employ somebody to get us back up from the Championship, there's no better person to do that than Steve Cooper. So by getting rid of him, we're getting rid of the best candidate to take us straight back up. I'm sure there's a million more points that I could go through, but I can already sense people are starting to fall asleep. My point of this is credit where credit's due. Mr. Marinakis, thank you. We appreciate your half backing of Steve Cooper. I appreciate that he has said results do need to improve immediately. When you look at our next three games being Villa, Man United and Liverpool, that does worry me slightly. But for now, it ends the speculation ahead of Saturday and gives us the best chance on Saturday. But credit where credit's due. I think it was a really good statement and was well needed to just end that speculation for this week. My last point on this is to the contingent of fans that are Cooper out. The club have backed him. We gain nothing from you not backing him whilst he still is the manager. So do us a favour and just shut the fuck up for a little bit. You'll be right eventually. He will get sacked. But for now, just back him because that's what's going to give us the best chance of staying up is if we're all unified. Steve Cooper, I love you. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Rant over.
Rant ended. Yeah, apologies. I think with it being so close to the end of the season as well, I kind of not overly the same situation, but you look at what Chelsea have done. So they spent they paid the most amount of compensation ever for a manager for Graham Potter. I think it was a pretty good move. He's young, he's British, he's done really, really well at Brighton. They then spend an absolute cubic metric fuck ton on really young players on super long contracts. Which, if anybody's not familiar with baseball, it's what they do in baseball. It's kind of like a weighted competition, so you can't really buy, you can't really have like a Galacticos team. And obviously the Chelsea owner Ted Bolio also owns the LA Dodgers. So I was thinking there's a long-term plan here. So yes, their season isn't going great this season. They're still in the Champions League. Yes, they are 11th, but at this point, when he's not been in charge for a whole season, with only 10 games to go, what can, as it turns out, what can Frank Lampard achieve this season that Graham Potter can't? You might as well get to the end of the season and go, right, you've got all these young players, you've got all these players to do with you. We can get rid of all the deadwood as well. Apparently, Raheem Sterling's on nearly 400 grand a week, doing nothing. You can mould these, you can get rid of these, you can have a full preseason to do as you wish. And then when it gets to October, November, if it's still the same, you can then get rid of a manager and save that season. But this season's gone. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying our season's gone in comparison, but unless the owners were to come out and go, right, Cooper's sacked, but we've got Jose Mourinho, or just a mind-bendingly huge manager, you're going to lose the fans. It's probably going to have a detrimental effect. I don't think we'll get there's that many players. I don't think we'll get a new manager bounce. It just all screams stick with it, and I'm glad that they've come out and said that.
Well, part of when I was thinking about it earlier, obviously goes without saying, I really want us to stay up, but the thought of just getting this season out of the way, staying up, getting rid of the deadwood, having a more considered and specific recruitment approach in the summer, getting Steve Cooper, it'll be his second season in the Premier League, will more than likely retain the services of Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson with Steve Cooper at the helm. I'm really excited. If we stay up and we have a good recruitment in the summer, I would be really excited for next season. I think next season could possibly be, with the right adjustments, the season a lot of deluded fans, such as Jacob, thought we were going to have this season.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But if we go down, the same thing applies. Steve Cooper is the best man to get us back up. All roads to me point to just please stick with Cooper because his stock is really high in the managerial world. He is widely known, as Graham Potter was as well, and is the next big thing. Eddie Howe, Graham Potter, Steve Cooper. Young managers with a bucket load of potential that are all touted as possibly being an England manager one day, things like that. Huge credit and huge credit within the FA system. He's going to be a major manager one day. We are lucky to have Steve Cooper, I think. He's had other offers in the Premier League. If we went down, I think we'd be lucky to keep him in the Championship. I think he would have a very high amount of offers from various Premier League teams anyway. So whether we kept him or not, who knows? I think hopefully he'd repay the faith we paid him. But obviously, hopefully it don't come to that. And I just want this season to be done and us stay up. 17th is fine. Whatever way is necessary for us to stay up. and kick on next season. I think I've got really high hopes for next season if this happens. So I think we've been disrupted through injuries as well. There's some really promising things coming in. I think Felipe and Niakate are fantastic. Felipe is one of the best defenders I've seen in a Forest shirt. Emmanuel Dennis, I think, is coming into form. Taiwo's back. Koyate's now back. We just need Yates back. Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson are only going to get better next season.
Yeah, Yates is a shoulder injury, isn't he?
Shoulder injury, yeah, which is a massive shame because we really need him at the minute.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about them either. They're all a long time.
Danilo looks brilliant. Scarpa next season, he's had his little integration. He looks shit against Leeds. I will say that. That really hurts me to say. But Scarpa didn't look great. He spent more time falling over than kicking a ball. Yeah, I think there's a lot of promise. I'd just like to deviate for 1 second because I've just remembered by saying the words Dennis. I tweeted the other day during the Leeds game, take a shot every time Dennis gives the ball away. And a few people came back saying that our agenda is unreal about Dennis. Like to clarify, that's not true. I think Dennis is very good. I really want him to do well. I think he's more noticeable in giving the ball away due to his position and the positions he gets himself into and the fact he makes it so obvious. There's no agenda. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's sorry, just to make a comment on that. I think it's I don't say commendable, but I think there's a reason that Cooper keeps picking him at the minute because he gets into good positions, but there's getting into good positions and there's using it, isn't there? There's
his finish against Newcastle was fantastic. His assist against Mangala, he did very well. There's a good player in there somewhere. Anyway, I didn't mean to digress that much. I felt like I had to say I don't have an agenda against Dennis. I've said how much of a good player he is a lot of the season, and it's pained me to see him when he wasn't good. I think the Dennis comeback is on. He just still needs to make better decisions.
He might be injured for Saturday anyway.
Yes, but we've got Taiwo back. At least that's what it looks like. He's had 2 good cameos now, good minutes. I mean, it wouldn't entirely surprise me if that means Andre Ayew would start. Don't get that. That's an element of Cooper that I don't agree with. So therefore, anyone that thinks Cooper's not open to criticism, that's not true. There are still elements that I'm not entirely fond of. But anyway, I've digressed and I've disrupted our point. But thank God that Steve Cooper is still our manager. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Which brings us nicely into this Saturday's game, which is away at Villa Park. It's Aston Villa. God, they've been so good at the minute, haven't they?
Unreal, yeah. Ollie Watkins is on fire. Unai Emery has really turned them around. I think they've scored. There was a stat that came up the other day which surprised me. I think they've scored in every single game since Emery's taken over or something like that.
They've been really quietly really good, haven't they?
Yeah, I looked at the table because, I mean, they were the team that were always above Palace. It's a little sizable gap. Little and sizable contradicts itself. Anyway, there's a gap.
See where they are now?
There's a gap above Palace, and I thought, right, so you got Palace, you got Villa. I looked earlier in the table, the 8th or something like that. 7th. That's crazy.
Oh, sorry, they might not be now because Liverpool.
No, they are 7th.
No, they're 8th. You're right. They're 8th. Liverpool played after, didn't they? Sorry.
No, they are 7th. You are right. I'm looking at the Premier League table, and it says 7th. So who knows? They've got 1 more point.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? That's crazy.
Yep. But I'm now going to stick my neck out and say we're going to win 3-1.
3 goals away from home. You really have been drinking, haven't you?
It's happened sometime. We're it's top team in the top 7, mate. That smells like a Forest victory to me. That's normally what happens, right?
Yeah, away from home is difficult. Villa are on flames. I am expecting to lose. This is the difficult part for me, is Leeds away and Villa away. For me, could very well be 2 losses. One of them already is. However, Man United at home should be a loss. We'll obviously talk about that more in the next podcast. But something tells me that the way Forest play at home, that'll be the game we pick points up.
Yep.
A lot rides on Saturday. It's going to be really key, and it's going to be a massive test of the Forest players' character, I think. If you care about Steve Cooper being your manager, this is the game to put your neck out and show that you care and put in a good performance.
I'm going to call it right here, right now.
Go on.
We're going to beat Arsenal at home and give Man City the lead in the title race.
I'm not so sure that's true either. Let me just ask you a question about Villa. Our away form has been awful. I'm going to throw you on the spot. What needs to change, or what would you change to make our away form or approach to away games different? If you were Steve Cooper right now, which you're definitely not.
It's difficult because because I think Felipe and Niakate have been very good recently, and the fact that they're managing to, I think you said it earlier that a better team than Leeds would have scored way more than 2 past us, and I think that they're a huge part of keeping that score down. I think what a big part of it is more of a regular team. So you look back to when we had that really good stretch of results just before and just after the World Cup, and I think it was a really, really settled team. And I think it was Freuler holding, Mangala and Yates, the back four. I think that was when we just swapped to Warren and Bolly, Ori and Loddy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be those players. I think it just needs to be a much more consistent core of the team, and I think that will help us to drive on. Whether or not we've got enough time for that now, whether or not we've got some absolute stinkers of injuries. I feel like Willy Bolly would have been huge if he'd not got. I think it was the Fulham game, wasn't it, when him and McKenna both got injured. Joe Worrell's really, really lacked form. The odd game he stood out, but in general he's really lacked form. I just think we need some consistency, and also just a slice of luck. An absolute slice of luck. Look at the Wolves game. I know that was at home, but it took a slight deflection, went straight over the top of Navas, didn't it? The Leeds game, Navas palms that ball out slightly harder. It goes wide rather than straight to Jack Harrison. It's just little tiny things. Just I feel like it's bred from consistency, and and even little things like having Serge Aurier fit and playing Loddy. Like Nico Williams knows he's second choice because he doesn't look like he's playing to be first choice. If that makes sense. So it's just, I think, consistency and a little slice of luck.
Yeah, I think away from home, I would like to see Yates, Koyate, either one of Mangala or Danilo. I think a player like Shelby, you said earlier in the week, and I thought that was quite a good point, is a luxury. We can't afford luxury at the minute.
You can't have a luxury that deep because he's playing defensive midfield. You can't have a luxury there. You can't. And I'm just gonna say that the first name in that midfield three has to be Freuler for me. I know he's had some up and down games since we signed Danilo, and he kind of got. He's in centre midfield. He's further forward. He's been swapped around, but him in holding midfield for the majority of this season has been very key.
I agree. He had an absolute stinker against Leeds. Look at his stats, dreadful. The reason I say Yates, Koyate, and like a Mangala is, I just think we need to disrupt. We need to win a midfield battle for once. Can't really tell you too many times we've actually won in the midfield this season.
I think that leaves us too exposed. I think we need one. I think we need a Yates or a Danilo, but that's just my opinion. Especially against a team like Leeds, which they like to fly forward. If you've got two players who are just bang straight out and they don't win the ball, that leaves that one in the middle on his own, and they're just going to flood forward, and that's what happened all game against Leeds.
Fine. I just think something needs to change away. I think we need to show some battle. I also think someone like Dennis, whilst I just said he is dangerous, he is at the moment a luxury away from home as well, because Yes, he is dangerous. Yes, he gets into good positions, but he does give the ball away a lot, and we cannot afford that.
I'd like to see him not on the left wing where he has to cut in. He's not going to use his left foot ever, is he? He reminds me a bit of Raheem Sterling, where he's got all the pace in the world, but because he's really one-footed, everything he does relies. I would, I'm terrible at football, but I would love to play right back against him if I had the body of a footballer, because he'd be so fucking easy to defend against. Oh, what are you going to do? You're going to cut inside? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Cheers for the ball.
I think he's a luxury. I just think we need some rubbish, similar to Brighton, just battling performances, but we come away with a point. That was a
great performance. Yeah, that's a good shout. That was a great performance.
I actually thought it was a terrible performance. But it was a performance that was enough. It was a performance that was good enough to get us a point at the time. Southampton away, we got 3 points there. It was still pretty shit, but we battled. We just need to battle and just grind out a point.
We are pretty shit, aren't we?
No, we're not. We've got promise. I just
think I'm being too realistic again, aren't I?
We need to battle out a point, and I don't care how it comes. If it's the most boring game in the world, but we get a point, nick a 3 point.
Hoorah!
That's all we need, because this weekend Leicester and Bournemouth play each other. So
that'll be a nil-nil,
anything, regardless of that result, anything less than a win. Yeah. If we lose at the weekend, we're in the relegation zone, regardless, because of the Leicester Bournemouth game. Marinakis, I don't know if that dread of confidence extends to Sunday, if that's the case. So I don't know. Who knows? It's impossible to tell at the minute. It won't surprise me if Forest turned up and were world beaters and absolutely smash Villa. It's football,
right? Joshua, I'm going to ask you one question, and I've got one comment to make as the positive ray of sunshine that I am.
Go on.
What do you think the score will be on Saturday?
2-0 to Villa.
Jesus Christ. Right, everybody needs this positive ray of sunshine. We're 3 points away from 12th in the league.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It can all change. That's the crazy thing. Bournemouth were done. They won one game. They're up. They're staying up.
Bournemouth were 8. Bournemouth were 8th in the table after they beat us.
Yeah, Leeds. I think Leeds think they're up now. They're staying up now that they beat us on Tuesday.
They're
Not
2
true.
points away from us.
Am I right in saying? Let me just check. I'm going to look at the table right now. So how many games in hand? We don't have any. Bollocks.
Nope. West Ham have a game in everyone around them, but even then, they're on the same as us. Yeah, and believe me, if you did not watch the highlights of West Ham Newcastle at the weekend, go and watch them, because we had Hamish Hughes on the podcast before as a really good friend of mine. I watched those highlights and I sat there and I went, "Oh, we're safe," because they are bad.
Yeah, West Ham played Newcastle last night, not at the weekend, but you do you, pal. Yeah.
Was that last night?
That was last night.
Fine, my guys. Sorry.
Well, to me, Southampton are done. But
Romeo, yeah.
Leicester to Crystal Palace, there's a lot of teams there that could go down. It's so horribly tight.
I think Leicester have made a terrible decision getting rid of Brendan Rodgers. Very similar situation to us. I don't know who they're going to get in that's better than Brendan Rodgers. Southampton were down as soon as they appointed Nathan Jones, in my opinion.
We only need 3 teams to be worse than us, or
that's 2
we need to equal, keep up with the rest of them. I think Bournemouth and Southampton guaranteed to me. You seem to think Leicester are guaranteed.
Gone.
I think Leeds and West Ham are still in trouble.
And Everton. I genuinely thought with Dyche in charge that Everton would be cut and gone. They're a bit like Villa, but
I think Everton will get enough. Either way, it's not over yet. If we do,
Palace.
Yeah. If we go into the relegation zone on Saturday, don't give up, because one win after that changes everything. And I mean, yes, it has to come away against Man United at home. It's going to be difficult, of course. Strange things have happened. We've beat Liverpool. We've drawn with Chelsea. We've drawn with Man City. Also, it might be a few weeks that the win comes, but at the time, it could still be tight enough for us to go up. It's going to be a horrible, horrible end to the season, but just stick in there. As tough as it might be, stick in there. I think we're going to be all right, but it's going to be a wild ride whilst we're at it.
Okay, another. I'm looking at the Premier League table right now. Another ray of sunshine for you. Fulham, who are flying high and are cut clear and safe, and etc., have only lost 3 less games than us this season. Ooh,
is that good?
I think that'd be good. We've lost 14, they've lost 11. I think that's pretty good.
Okay, cool. We've also only won 6.
Swings and roundabouts. So yeah. So if you're listening for the first time, thank you for finding us. If you've come back again, God knows we love you. We will be at the Man United game if for some pathetic reason we don't get to record a podcast between now and then. We will be at the Man United game. We will be in Poets Corner. We will be stood by that weird window that looks onto the toilets, because that's where we like to perch ourselves when we drink our beers. You Reds.